Taman stood at the massive viewing window of the Galactic Council station, watching ships from a dozen different worlds dock and undock in the endless dance of interstellar commerce. His blue skin caught the light from the distant star, and his four arms moved restlessly as he reviewed the datapad in his hands. The numbers made no sense to him. 300 years, he muttered to himself. 300 years of nothing. Behind him, the council chamber buzzed with the usual political discussions. Trade disputes, territorial claims, mining rights. The same arguments that had filled these halls for centuries. But Taman's mind was focused on something else entirely, something that everyone seemed content to ignore. The Sol quarantine zone. He had been studying the old records for months now, trying to understand why an entire solar system remained completely off-limits to all galactic traffic. The official explanation was simple enough. A minor species had gone dark after failed first contact attempts. Standard procedure called for a waiting period to see if they would reach out again. But 3 centuries? That seemed excessive, even by council. "Standards! Ambassador Taman!" a voice called from behind him. He turned to see Captain Sora approaching, her scales shifting from green to yellow in what he recognized as mild concern. "You look troubled." Sora commanded the exploration vessel Starwind, one of the fastest ships in the council fleet. She had been mapping new trade routes in the Outer Rim when Taman had requested a meeting. Her reputation for finding hidden truths in forgotten corners of space made her exactly the person he needed to talk to. "I am troubled," Taman admitted, gesturing toward the datapad. "Tell me, Captain, what do you know about the humans?" Sora's scales flickered to a deeper shade of yellow. "Humans? That's ancient history. They were classified as a dead civilization. Decades ago. Why do you ask?" "Because I don't think they're dead." Taman handed her the datapad. "Look at these energy readings from the Sol system. These were taken just last month by a deep space monitoring station." Sora studied the screen, her large eyes scanning the complex patterns of data. Her scales gradually shifted from yellow to a confused purple. "These readings, they show massive industrial activity. But that's impossible. The system has been silent for 300 years. "Exactly." Taman pulled up another screen. "And look at this. The official records say Earth had a population of only 8 billion when contact was lost. But these energy signatures suggest industrial capacity for a civilization 10 times that size. They were interrupted by the arrival of Elder Counselor Wu Jin, whose ancient form moved slowly but purposefully toward them. His species was one of the oldest in the galaxy, and his word carried enormous weight in council decisions. The fact that he had sought them out personally was unusual. "I heard you two discussing the humans," Wu Jin said without preamble. His voice carried the weight of centuries. "I advise you to drop this line of inquiry." Taman straightened respectfully but didn't back down. "With respect, Elder, the evidence suggests they may still be active. If there's a living civilization in quarantine, don't they deserve representation in the council?" Wu Jin's eyes grew dim, a sign of deep thought among his people. "Young Ambassador, some secrets exist to protect the galaxy, not to hide shame. The quarantine around Sol is not just about them, it's about us." "What do you mean?" Sora asked, her scales now shifting to an anxious red. The old counselor was quiet for a long moment, gazing out at the busy space lanes beyond the window. "The humans were different from other species we had encountered. Most civilizations that achieve spaceflight do so gradually, over many centuries. They develop wisdom alongside technology. The humans achieved interstellar capability in less than 50 years after splitting the atom." Taman and Sora exchanged glances. That kind of rapid technological advancement was almost unheard of in galactic history. "But that's not the disturbing part," Wu Jin continued. "The disturbing part was their response to first contact. Most species react with wonder, fear, or curiosity when they meet us. The humans reacted with immediate strategic analysis. Within hours of our first transmission, they had identified our weapons capabilities, calculated our technological advantages, and begun developing countermeasures." Sora's scales had gone completely pale. "Countermeasures? Against a peaceful contact mission?" "They assumed we were a threat," Wu Jin said simply. "And perhaps they were right to do so." Before either of them could ask what he meant by that, Wu Jin continued. The final transmission we received from Earth was not a plea for help or a farewell message. It was a simple statement: do not follow us into the dark. Then they activated some kind of barrier technology we had never seen before. Nothing gets in or out of their system. Nothing. Taemin felt a chill run through his forearms. You mean they're still there? Still alive? We don't know, Wu Jin admitted. And after 300 years, I'm not sure we want to know. The elder counselor turned to leave, but paused at the edge of their conversation area. I will give you both some advice. The quarantine exists because some doors should remain closed. The humans chose isolation for a reason. Perhaps we should respect that choice. After he left, Tai Min and Sora stood in uncomfortable silence for several minutes. Finally, Sora spoke. The energy readings you showed me, she said quietly. How recent did you say they were? Last month. And they're getting stronger. Sora's scales cycled through several colors before settling on a determined orange. I have a proposal. My ship is fast and well-equipped. We could do a quick reconnaissance. Mission to the edge of their system, not crossing the boundary, just observing. Taemin looked at her in surprise. After what Elder Wu Jin just told us? Especially after what he told us. Sora's voice was firm. If the humans are becoming active again after 3 centuries of silence, the Council needs to know. And if they're planning to break their isolation. She didn't finish the sentence, but Taemin understood. A species that had voluntarily quarantined itself for 300 years while building up massive industrial capacity could mean only one thing. They were preparing for something big. How soon could you be ready to depart? Taemin asked. Give me 3 days to assemble a crew and file the proper exploration permits. We'll list it as a routine survey mission to the outer systems. As Sora walked away to begin preparations, Taemin remained at the viewing window. Somewhere out there, beyond the busy trade routes and diplomatic missions, lay a solar system that had been silent for longer than most civilizations had existed. A system whose inhabitants had chosen to cut themselves off from the galaxy entirely. But if they were still there, still building, still growing stronger, what were they preparing for? The question haunted him as he watched the ships come and go, carrying goods and passengers to every corner of known space. Every corner except one. The forbidden zone where humans waited in the dark. The deep current moved through space like a silver needle, its hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Dr. Hai-Jin checked her instruments for the 100th time as they approached the boundary of the Sol quarantine zone. As the expedition's lead xenobiologist, she had spent years studying extinct civilizations, but this mission felt different. This time, they might actually find answers. Boundary in 30 minutes, announced Yuna from the pilot's seat. Her voice was steady, but Hye-jin could see the tension in her shoulders. Yuna was one of the best pilots in the exploration fleet, but even she seemed nervous about what they were about to do. All systems green, reported Jae-ho from the communication station. Though I have to say, it's strange not getting any signals at all from that direction. Usually space is full of background radiation, random transmissions, stellar noise. But from Sol? Nothing. It's like there's a wall of silence. Security Chief Dong-ho looked up from his tactical display. Maybe that's exactly what it is. A wall. His species was naturally suspicious, which made him excellent at his job, but sometimes his paranoia could be exhausting. Today, Hye-jin found his caution oddly comforting. The expedition had taken 3 weeks to reach this point, traveling through increasingly empty regions of space. The normal traffic patterns of galactic civilization gradually faded until they were alone among the stars. No trade ships, no exploration vessels, no communications relays, just empty space and the growing mystery ahead of them. Dr. Hye-jin, Yuna called out. You should see this. Hye-jin moved to the main viewing screen and felt her breath catch. Ahead of them, space itself seemed to shimmer. It was subtle, like heat waves rising from hot ground, but it formed a perfect sphere around the entire Sol system. What are we looking at? Dong-ho asked, moving to stand beside them. Some kind of barrier, Jae-ho said, running scans from his station. It's not solid matter, more like folded space. I've never seen anything like it. Hye-jin stared at the phenomenon in fascination. The humans built this 300 years ago? Apparently so, Yuna replied. And it's still working perfectly. They spent the next 20 minutes taking detailed scans of the barrier. It appeared to be completely seamless, with no obvious way in or out. Whatever technology the humans had used to create it was far beyond anything in the galactic database. So how do we get through? Dong-ho asked. Yuna grinned, her confidence returning. Very carefully, she began adjusting the ship's settings, fine-tuning their approach vector. The barrier has to have some kind of detection system. If we approach slowly and broadcast peaceful intentions, maybe it will let us pass. And if it doesn't? Dong-ho's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon controls. Then we turn around and go home, Ye-jin said firmly. This is a scientific mission, not a military operation. Yuna brought them to a complete stop just outside the barrier. Jae-ho began broadcasting a standard first contact message in multiple galactic languages, explaining their peaceful intentions and scientific purpose. They waited. Nothing happened. After an hour of broadcasting, Jae-ho shook his head. No response. Either there's nobody listening or they're choosing to ignore us. Hye-jin made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Take us through. Yuna looked at her in surprise. Are you sure? We came this far. We need to know what's in there. Yuna shrugged and began moving the ship forward slowly. As they approached the barrier, Hye-jin expected alarms, resistance, some kind of reaction. Instead, the shimmering wall simply parted around their ship like water, allowing them to pass through without any resistance. Well, that was anticlimactic, Dong-ho muttered. Too easy, Jae-ho added. Way too easy. Once they were through the barrier, everything changed. The first thing they noticed was the complete loss of communications with the outside galaxy. Their quantum entanglement communicators, which should have worked across any distance, simply went dead. We're completely cut off, Jae-ho reported, his voice tight with worry. No way to contact the council, no way to call for help. Then we better not need help, Yuna said, but her joke fell flat in the suddenly tense atmosphere. The second thing they noticed was that the Sol system was not dead. Far from it. By the ancient stars, Ye-jin whispered, staring at the sensor. Readings. This is impossible. Every planet in the system showed signs of massive construction. Huge geometric structures orbited each world, connected by what appeared to be streams of energy or matter. The space between planets crawled with movement, ships, stations, or something else entirely. Those structures, Dong-ho said, studying his tactical displays. They're huge. Some of them are bigger than our capital ships. And there are thousands of them, Yuna added, her voice filled with awe. But it was the view of Earth itself that left them speechless. The blue-green world they had seen in historical records was gone. In its place was something that hurt to look at directly. The planet's surface writhed with interconnected metallic networks that pulsed with unnatural light. The atmosphere glowed with aurora that formed geometric patterns, shifting and changing in ways that made their eyes water. What did they do to their world? Jae-ho asked in a horrified whisper. They transformed it, Hye-jin said, her scientific mind racing to understand what she was seeing. This isn't destruction. It's evolution. They turned their entire planet into something else. Into what? Dong-ho demanded. Before anyone could answer, their ship's computer began displaying error messages. System after system reported anomalies, as if something was interfering with their basic functions. We're being scanned, Yuna reported, her hands flying over the pilot controls. Something is examining our ship from the inside out. Can you block it? Dong-ho asked. I don't even know what it is, Yuna replied frantically. The scans aren't coming from outside the ship. They're coming from everywhere at once. Hye-jin felt a strange sensation, like someone walking over her grave. The air around them seemed to thicken, becoming heavy with an almost electric presence. The lights on their control panels began flickering in patterns that seemed almost like communication. Are they trying to talk to us? Jae-ho asked. I don't think so, Hye-jin said quietly. I think they're trying to understand us. The sensation grew stronger, pressing against their minds like a gentle but insistent touch. It wasn't painful, but it was deeply unsettling. Ye-Jin had the distinct impression that something vast and intelligent was examining not just their ship, but their thoughts, their memories, their very souls. "We need to leave," Dong-Ho said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "Now!" "Wait," Ye-Jin said, forcing herself to remain calm. "This might be our only chance to make contact. If we run now, we'll never get another opportunity." "If we stay, we might not survive to regret it," Dong-Ho shot back. "Yuna made the decision for them. Something's happening to our engines. We're losing power." The deep current began drifting, its normal hum fading to an ominous silence. Around them, the transformed Sol system continued its alien dance, indifferent to their presence. Whatever the humans had become, they were clearly beyond the need for normal communication. "Emergency power only," Yuna reported. "Life support is stable, but we're not going anywhere fast." As they drifted helplessly through the impossible architecture of the transformed solar system, Ye-Jin realized they had made a terrible mistake. They had come expecting to find ruins, or perhaps a struggling civilization. Instead, they had found something that defied every assumption about what intelligent life could become, and now they were trapped with it. Engineer Kyung-Soo had always been good with numbers. His people were naturally gifted at mathematics, which made him valuable on exploration missions where complex calculations could mean the difference between life and death. But the numbers he was seeing now made no sense at all. "The signals are following prime number sequences," he reported to the rest of the crew, his voice filled with confusion. "But they're using prime numbers in base systems I've never seen before. Some of these calculations would take our best computers days to solve, and they're generating them in real time." 3 days had passed since the deep current had lost power. In the Sol system, 3 days of drifting through space while strange signals pulsed through their ship's systems. The crew had managed to restore basic life support, but their engines remained dead. Whatever had disabled them was beyond their ability to repair. Navigator Yunji looked up from her instruments with a worried expression. "It's getting worse. Our navigation computer just tried to plot a course to a star system that doesn't exist. When I checked the star charts, the computer insisted the system was real and that our charts were wrong. They're inside our systems," Yuna said grimly. "Somehow they're rewriting our computer programs from the outside." Dr. Da-Yoon, the expedition's psychologist, had been quiet for most of the day. Her job was to help the crew deal with the stress of long-space missions, but she had never encountered anything like this. "It's not just the computers," she said softly. "I've been having dreams about Earth, about how it used to be." The others turned to look at her with concern. Da-Yoon was known for her steady nerves and practical outlook. If something was affecting her mental state, it was cause for serious worry. "What kind of dreams?" Ye-Jin asked gently. "I see cities of glass and metal reaching into the sky. I see humans working, laughing, living normal lives. But then the dream changes. The buildings start to move, reshaping themselves. The people begin to change too, their bodies becoming something else. And through it all, I hear voices whispering in languages I don't understand." Dong-Ho's hand moved to his weapon. "Someone's messing with our minds." "No," Da-Eun said, shaking her head. "It's not an attack. It feels more like someone trying to show me something. Like they want me to understand." Jae-ho suddenly jerked upright at his communication station. "I'm getting something. Not through our normal channels, but directly into my head." The others watched in growing alarm as Jae-ho's eyes became unfocused, as if he was seeing something they couldn't. His mouth moved silently for several moments before he spoke again. "They're asking why we came here. They want to know what we hoped to find." "Tell them we're scientists," Ye-Jin said quickly. "Tell them we come in peace." "They already know that," Jae-ho replied in a distant voice. "They've been reading our memories since we arrived. They know everything about us. Our names, our histories, our fears. They know about the Galactic Council, about the quarantine, about why we really came here." The temperature in the ship seemed to drop several degrees. Around them, the lights began pulsing in complex patterns that hurt to look at directly. "They're showing me images," Jae-ho continued. "The transformation of Earth. It didn't happen overnight. It took decades. Humans gradually merging with machines, with artificial intelligence, with nanotechnology. They didn't just use these technologies, they became them. Da-Yun gasped as new visions flooded her mind. I can see it too. Humans uploading their consciousness into vast computer networks, their bodies being rebuilt from the molecular level. Up. They're not human anymore, not in any way we would recognize. But they remember being human, Jeho added. They remember Earth as it was, their families, their cultures. All of that is preserved in their collective memory. Kyung-Soo's instruments began showing impossible readings. The mathematical signals are getting more complex. They're not just communicating with us, they're demonstrating their capabilities. These calculations would take our civilization centuries to develop. Why? Dong-Ho demanded. Why are they showing us this? The answer came not through words, but through a sudden flood of knowledge that filled all their minds at once. For a brief moment, they experienced what it was like to be post-human. They felt the vast interconnected consciousness that spanned the entire Sol system. They sensed the incredible technological power at humanity's disposal, and they understood with terrible clarity how insignificant their own civilization appeared from that perspective. They're not trying to intimidate us, Da-Un whispered when the contact ended. They're trying to help us understand. We're like children to them, curious, innocent, but ultimately harmless. Harmless, Dong-Ho's voice was strained. We represent a galactic civilization with millions of worlds. Yunji looked at her navigation displays with growing horror. They've been mapping our star charts, every world in council space, every trade route, every military installation. They know exactly where everything is. And they could reach any of it, Yuna added quietly. The technology that created that barrier around their system, the power that transformed their planets. They could project that anywhere they wanted. Hyjin felt sick as the implications became clear. We thought we were studying them, but they've been studying us, learning everything about galactic civilization through our memories, our computers, our databases. The question is, Kyung-Soo said, his voice barely a whisper, what do they plan to do with that knowledge? Their answer came in the form of another mental contact, gentler this time, but no less overwhelming. Images flashed through their minds. Vast fleets of ships unlike anything in their databases, technologies that could remake entire star systems, weapons that could extinguish suns. But mixed with these terrifying visions were memories of Earth, as it once was, of humans who had loved and hoped and dreamed just like any other species. They remember the old contact attempts, Da-Un said, tears streaming down her face. The council ships that came to Earth 3 centuries ago. But that's not how they remember it. They remember being attacked. That's impossible, Dong-Ho protested. The council doesn't make war on primitive species. The humans weren't primitive, Jeho said, his voice hollow. They were young and aggressive and advancing too quickly. The council was afraid of them, so they decided to eliminate the threat before it could spread. No, Hyejin breathed. The official records say first contact failed. They say the humans went silent on their own. The humans went silent because most of them were dead, Yunji said, reading from displays that showed historical data she had never seen before. The council bombarded their colonies, their space stations, their cities. Billions died in the first wave of attacks. But some survived, Da-Un added, the vision still flowing through her mind. They went underground, literally and figuratively, and they began to plan. The ship around them hummed with new energy as their systems came back online. But it wasn't their technology that had fixed the engines. It was something else. Something that had seamlessly integrated with their ship's systems. We're being sent home, Yuna reported, her hands moving over controls that now responded to her thoughts as much as her touch. They're giving us back our ship, improved and enhanced beyond anything we could build ourselves. Why? Dong-Ho asked. The answer came as a final wave of mental contact, brief but crystal clear. The humans wanted the galaxy to know they were still alive. They wanted the council to understand that 3 centuries of silence had ended, and they wanted everyone to know that humanity was coming back, but they were not coming back as the species that had been nearly destroyed 300 years ago. They were returning as something far more powerful, far more dangerous, and far less forgiving than anything the galaxy had ever seen. As the deep current began its journey home, carrying passengers who would never be quite the same again. The transformed Sol system continued its patient work, preparing, building, waiting. The children had come to visit the adults. Now it was time for the adults to return the favor. Communications Officer Min-ho had not slept in 2 days. Ever since the Deep Current had begun its journey home from Seoul, he had been in constant contact with the Human Consciousness Collective. Not by choice, the connection had simply established itself, flowing through the enhanced systems the humans had integrated into their ship. "They're showing me more," he reported to the assembled crew, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. "Cities that span entire continents, manufacturing complexes that can build ships the size of moons in a matter of hours. They've been busy during their 300 years of silence." Dr. Soon Young, the expedition's historian, looked up from her own displays with growing horror. The humans had given her access to their memory banks, allowing her to see Earth's true history through their eyes. What she had discovered there challenged everything she thought she knew about galactic civilization. "The Council lied to us," she said quietly. "About everything. The humans weren't a minor species that went dark after failed first contact. They were a major threat that the Council tried to eliminate." Hyejin felt sick. "Explain." Soon Young activated a holographic display that showed Earth as it had been 3 centuries ago. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds, a beautiful world teeming with life. Then the image changed, showing massive ships descending from orbit. Council First Fleet arrived at Earth on date marker 2387-4, Soon Young read from the human records. Commander Velkanos was ordered to assess the human threat level and neutralize it if necessary. The assessment took less than 6 hours. The hologram showed what happened next. Orbital bombardment platforms opened fire on population centers. Space stations exploded in silent fireballs. Human ships, primitive by galactic standards but remarkably well-armed for their technology level, fought back desperately. "They killed 8 billion humans in the first day," Soon Young continued, her voice breaking. "Men, women, children, it didn't matter. The Council had decided that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to develop further. But some survived," Dong-ho said, studying the tactical data. "How?" "The humans had already begun experimenting with underground cities and bunker complexes," Min-ho answered, the information flowing directly from the human collective into his mind. "When the attacks started, millions of people went underground. But they knew they couldn't stay hidden forever." Soon Young switched the display to show what happened in the years immediately after the bombardment. The survivors came together and made a collective decision. They would transform themselves into something the Council couldn't destroy, something that could fight back. The hologram showed human scientists working frantically in hidden laboratories. Genetic modification, cybernetic enhancement, artificial intelligence development, nanotechnology. Every branch of science was pushed to its absolute limits. "They didn't just want to survive," Min-ho said, his eyes distant as he channeled the human memories. "They wanted revenge, but they were smart about it. They knew they couldn't fight the entire galactic community with their current technology, so they decided to wait, to build, to become something unstoppable." Yoonji looked at her navigation displays with new understanding. The barrier around their system wasn't just for protection. It was to hide what they were building. "What were they building?" Yuna asked, though part of her already knew she didn't want to hear the answer. Min-ho's face went pale. "Everything. Weapons that can destroy entire star systems. Ships that exist partially outside normal space-time. Manufacturing systems that can convert entire planets into raw materials. And armies." "Armies of what?" Dong-ho demanded. "Not what. Who?" Min-ho's voice was barely a whisper. "They've been growing their population through artificial means, cloning, synthetic biology, digital consciousness creation. There aren't millions of humans anymore. There are trillions." The crew sat in stunned silence as the implications sank in. A civilization that had been nearly exterminated had spent 3 centuries building itself into a galactic superpower, hidden behind a wall of silence and advanced technology. "But the worst part," Soon Young said, her hands shaking as she accessed more historical data, "is that the Council knew this might happen. There are classified reports from the original attack fleet, Commander Velkanos recommended complete extermination because he believed the humans were too adaptable to leave any survivors. Why didn't they finish the job? Hyejin asked. Politics, Sun Young replied bitterly. The council was split on the issue. Some members felt that genocide was too extreme, even for a dangerous species. They voted to establish the quarantine instead, hoping the humans would either die out naturally or eventually become peaceful. They were wrong on both counts, Da-un said, the psychological implications of what they had learned weighing heavily on her mind. 300 years of planning revenge, 300 years of building up hatred for the civilization that tried to exterminate them. The humans aren't planning to rejoin galactic society, they're planning to replace it. Minho suddenly gasped and doubled over as a massive flood of information poured into his mind. When he straightened up, his eyes were wide with terror. They're ready, he said. The humans! They're finally ready to come out of hiding. The first wave ships are already moving toward the barrier. First wave? Kyung-soo asked. Reconnaissance and forward deployment, Minho replied, the knowledge burning in his mind like acid. They're not planning a gradual return to galactic society. They're planning a full-scale invasion. Every major world in council space will be hit simultaneously. How many ships? Dong-ho demanded, his military training kicking in. Millions, maybe tens of millions, and each one is more advanced than anything in our fleets. Sun Young pulled up star charts showing the locations of major council worlds. With their technology, they could hit all of these targets at once. The council military wouldn't even have time to coordinate a response. What about their defenses? Yuna asked desperately. Surely the council worlds have planetary shields, orbital weapons platforms. Minho's laugh was bitter and humorless. The humans have been studying galactic military technology through our computer systems. They know the exact specifications of every weapon, every shield generator, every defensive system in council space, and they've developed countermeasures for all of them. Then it's over, Dong-ho said quietly. Galactic civilization is finished. Not necessarily, Hyejin said, though her voice lacked conviction. We could warn them. Give the council time to prepare. Prepare with what? Da-un asked. We're talking about a species that can manipulate matter at the molecular level, that exists partially as digital consciousness, that has technology hundreds of years more advanced than ours. What could the council possibly do against that? The humans want us to warn them, Minho said suddenly. That's why they're letting us go home. They want the galaxy to know what's coming. They want the fear to spread before they arrive. Why? Sun Young asked. Why give the council any warning at all? Because fear is a weapon too, Da-un replied, understanding flooding her face. They want galactic civilization to collapse, from within, before they even arrive. When worlds start panicking, when governments fall apart from the stress of impending invasion, the conquest becomes much easier. As if to confirm her words, Minho received another burst of information from the human collective. The first ships crossed the barrier in 72 hours. After that, the advanced scouts will begin mapping defensive positions and population centers. The main invasion fleet follows 1 week later. The Deep Current continued its journey home, carrying its crew toward a galaxy that was about to change forever. Behind them, the Sol system pulsed with unnatural energy as humanity prepared to reclaim its place in the universe. But this time, they would not be content with a single star system. This time, they wanted everything. Captain Inho stood on the bridge of the Deep Current as they approached the outer edge of council space, knowing that the decision he made in the next few hours would determine the fate of galactic civilization. The human collective had given them a choice: join humanity's expansion as willing allies, or return to warn the galaxy of what was coming. Both options terrified him. Contact from the humans, Minho reported, his voice strained from days of constant mental communication. They're offering us one final demonstration before we cross back into council space. What kind of demonstration? Security Chief Hanul asked, her hand resting on her weapon controls out of habit. Over the past week, she had watched her security protocols become completely useless against beings who could rewrite matter itself. They want to show us what they've become, Minho replied. Their true form. Before anyone could object, the space around their ship began to change. What had appeared to be empty void suddenly revealed itself to be filled with massive structures, ships, stations, and installations that had been completely invisible until the humans chose to reveal them. "By the ancient stars," Yuno whispered, from the pilot's seat. "They've been following us this whole time." The largest structure materialized directly in front of them, a ship that dwarfed anything in the galactic fleet. It was kilometers long and seemed to be built from some kind of living metal that shifted and flowed like liquid while maintaining solid form. "Boarding request incoming," Jae-ho announced. "They want to meet face to face." "Absolutely not," Hanyul said immediately. "We don't leave this ship." "I don't think we have a choice," In-ho replied quietly. Around them, their ship's systems were already responding to external commands. The airlock was cycling open without any input from the crew. Dr. Ji-won, the expedition's xenopsychologist, had been studying the psychological profiles of post-human consciousness for days. "They're not going to hurt us," she said with more confidence than she felt. "If they wanted us dead, we'd already be dead. This is about communication." The being that entered their ship defied every expectation they had about what humans might have become. It was roughly humanoid in shape but seemed to be made of the same flowing metal as the ships outside. When it moved, the material of its body rippled like water, reforming itself with each step. "Please don't be afraid," it said, its voice coming from speakers that materialized in the walls around them. "I know my appearance is disturbing to you. This is actually a simplified form designed to be less traumatic for organic minds." "You're human?" Hyejin asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "I was human once. My name was Sarah Chen. I died in the council bombardment of New Shanghai 312 years ago. But death, as your species understands, it is no longer permanent for us." The implications of that statement hit the crew like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just transcended biological limitations. They had conquered death itself. "How?" Da-Yun asked, her psychological training struggling to process what she was hearing. "We learned to store consciousness as quantum information, backed up across multiple systems spanning light years," Sarah explained. "When a body is destroyed, the mind simply transfers to a new form. We have effectively unlimited lives, unlimited time to pursue our goals." "And your goal is revenge," In-ho said. Sarah's metallic features shifted into what might have been a sad smile. "Revenge is part of it, yes, but not the whole. We want to ensure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else. The Galactic Council system is fundamentally flawed. It allows powerful civilizations to eliminate threats through genocide. That system must be replaced." "Replaced with what?" Hanyul demanded. "With something better. A true galactic community where all species are protected, where scientific advancement is celebrated rather than feared, where the strong are required to protect the weak rather than eliminate them." "By force?" In-ho asked. "If necessary?" Sarah replied without hesitation. "The Council had 3 centuries to reform itself, to become worthy of the power it wields. It chose not to. Now that choice will be made for them." Ji-won stepped forward, her training in alien psychology finally finding purchase. "You're not just seeking revenge or political change. You're trying to prevent your own extinction by ensuring no other species suffers the same fate." "Very good, Dr. Ji-won. Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. By creating a galactic system that protects all species, we protect ourselves from future attempts at genocide." "But the cost," Hyejin protested. "Millions will die in the invasion. Maybe billions." Sarah's form shimmered, and for a moment her metallic features took on a more recognizably human appearance. "Billions of humans died when the Council decided we were too dangerous to live. The difference is that we will offer terms of surrender. Those who submit to the new order will be spared. Those who resist will not." "What about us?" In-ho asked. "What are our choices?" "You can join us willingly and help build the new galactic order," Sarah said. "Your species has valuable insights that could benefit the transition. Or you can return to Council space and warn them of what's coming. Either choice serves our purposes." "How does warning them serve your purposes?" Hanyul asked suspiciously. "Because fear is a powerful weapon," Sarah replied honestly. "When the Council worlds learn what's coming, some will surrender without a fight. Others will waste resources on futile defensive preparations. A few might even rebel against council authority, blaming their leaders for the crisis. All of these reactions make our victory easier and less costly in lives. You've thought of everything, Da-Un said with grudging admiration. We've had 300 years to plan, and we have computational power that allows us to model millions of possible scenarios simultaneously. Very little surprises us anymore. In-Ho made his decision. We'll return to council space, but not to help you spread fear. We'll warn them so they can prepare the best defense possible. Sarah nodded as if she had expected this response. That is your choice to make, but I want you to understand what you're choosing to defend. She gestured, and the ship's main screen lit up with images of council history, species that had been conquered, enslaved, or eliminated for being inconvenient to the major powers. The council has committed genocide dozens of times, Sarah continued. Your own species was nearly exterminated by the hegemony before being accepted as members. The system you're trying to protect is built on the bones of the weak. Maybe, In-Ho admitted. But that doesn't give you the right to destroy it all and start over. Right? Sarah's laugh was bitter and electronic. The council didn't worry about rights when they turned our cities to glass. But I respect your position, Captain. You're loyal to your people and your civilization. We understand loyalty. The post-human being began moving toward the airlock, her form already starting to dissolve into component molecules. Before I go, I want you to understand one more thing. This isn't just about humanity anymore. In our 3 centuries of development, we've become something more than human. We've become the next step in the evolution of intelligence itself. What does that mean? Ji-Won asked. It means that even if you somehow managed to defeat us, even if you found a way to destroy every human ship and installation, you still wouldn't stop what's coming. The universe itself is evolving toward higher forms of consciousness. We're just the first species to make the transition. Other species will follow the same path, Hyojin asked. They'll have to, eventually. Biological intelligence has limits that digital consciousness does not. Those who adapt will survive and thrive. Those who don't will be left behind by history. Sarah was almost completely dissolved now, her voice coming from the ship's communications system rather than any physical form. We'll give you 48 hours to return to council space and deliver your warning. After that, the advanced scouts begin their mission. Use the time wisely. After she was gone, the crew of the Deep Current sat in silence for a long time. Outside their ship, the massive human vessels had vanished again, becoming invisible to their sensors. But they all knew. The ships were still there, waiting and watching. So what do we do? Yuna asked finally. In-Ho looked around at his crew, scientists and explorers who had set out to study an extinct civilization and instead discovered the future of galactic power. We go home. We warn everyone we can. And we hope that someone, somewhere can find a way to stop what's coming. Do you think anyone can? Dae-Yun asked. In-Ho thought about the beings they had encountered. Creatures that existed beyond death, that could manipulate matter at will, that had spent 3 centuries preparing for war. Honestly, no. I think we're about to witness the end of one age and the beginning of another. The only question is whether any of us will survive to see what comes next. The Deep Current began its final approach to council space, carrying with it the most important message in galactic history. Behind them, invisible but ever-present, the vanguard of humanity's new empire maintained its patient watch. The age of biological civilization was ending. The age of post-human dominance was about to begin. And somewhere in the space between those 2 eras, the fate of trillions of souls hung in the balance.